use your computer. Thanks, everybody. So hopefully everybody can take a few minutes and get a drink and settle down. I was actually going to wear my pajamas today, and I thought it would be perfect to come and give a talk wearing my pajamas, but they got left at home. Some years ago, I went to a fundraiser for Stand Up to Cancer, if any of you have heard of Stand Up to Cancer, and it was a black tie affair, so everybody had black tie and ballroom gowns on, me included. And Whoopi Goldberg was one of the keynote entertainers, and she came on stage wearing her pajamas. I'll never forget this. And she looked around the audience and she said, "I bet I'm the only one here who's comfortable today." So anyway, no pajamas, but I am cash. Okay, so we're going to talk about why we all need a good night's sleep today. And it's a sort of an important subject, and I think it dovetails very nicely into Laura's talk this morning about circadian rhythm and eating. And when you put those two subjects together, you really build a platform of good health, good sleep, good eating habits, and it doesn't really matter how you adjust them. You're going to get good health by paying attention to how you apply what we learn to our daily lives. And this is not a talk about, let me see if I can make this thing work. How do we make this? Oh, I'm on my own. Okay. First of all, no conflict of interest. Judy told you I'm a primary care physician. Now, this is what we're not going to talk about today. I am not going to talk about any sort of disease-related sleep disorder. We're not going to talk about obstructive sleep apnea, narcolepsy. We're not going to talk about treatment of sleep disorders. This is really not so much a talk about clinical management. This is about you and how you understand your sleep, with the hope at the end of the talk, you may, if you have some sleep issues, have some tools that you can take home to think about how to improve your sleep. And it applies to me too, because I definitely could do with cleaning up my sleep schedule. How many people here feel like they had a good night's sleep last night? Put your hand up. Okay, so a smattering. How many people here feel, in general, they sleep well? Okay, a little bit better. So when you're sleeping in a hotel or you're away from home, it's expected that you're not going to sleep too well. Uncomfortable bed, noisy room, an environment that might be too warm for you. But at home, getting a good night's sleep is actually a little bit more tricky in this day and age than you would think. So today we're going to talk about what is sleep, why is it so important. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the causes of poor sleep. And then we're going to talk briefly about how poor sleep, well, not actually briefly, maybe a little bit longer, about how poor sleep negatively impacts our health, both on chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, obesity, I'll mention CVD. And then we're going to finish up talking about strategies for good sleep, okay? And that's where I'm going to ask you guys to sort of participate a little bit in talking about that. So here we go. This is life, guys. So a third of our day is spent with our friends, watching TV, maybe eating, maybe pooing and peeing, all very important. The other third is spent pretending to work, maybe actually working, okay? But a good third of our day is spent sleeping, okay? And if we live a long life, that's about 25 years of our existence on this planet is spent sleeping, okay? It was thought for a very long time that sleep essentially was just you go to bed, you shut down, you get some rest, you get up in the morning and get going again. But over the 20th century, there was the gradual recognition that sleep is actually an incredibly important part of good health. It's very important for our metabolic health, our brain health, our bone and muscle health, as well as our just general health the next day. Now, all mammals sleep, okay? This is not something unique, obviously, to human beings. It varies. I don't know if Diana's in the room. I put this slide in for her. Koalas sleep on average 22 hours a day. They'll lodge their little butts into a V in the tree, and they will sleep for 22 hours, and they'll wake up, eat eucalyptus leaves for 2 hours, and then go back to sleep. Horses, on the other hand, the bigger the mammal, the less they sleep. Horses sleep standing up, which is really quite unique when you think about it. Cows, many other four-legged animals sleep standing up, and they do it by locking their legs in order not to fall over while they're having a little sleep, okay? Interestingly, birds sleep one half of their brain at a time. This is a survival technique. They keep one eye open, and the opposite side of the brain to that eye, because remember the nerve pathways cross in the middle, stays awake, while the other half of the brain goes to sleep. And this is their protective mechanism to keep themselves safe while they're sleeping. So if you ever see a bunch of ducks sleeping, and they don't have their head all the way under their wing, you will see that one eye is open. Now, nobody knows why pink flamingos like to stand on one leg to sleep. This is a mystery that continues. Perhaps most interestingly of mammals are dolphins. So dolphins are one of the few mammals that do the same thing. They sleep with one half of their brain at a time. Their challenge is they've got to rise to the surface to breathe and then descend under the water, where they will often hang perpendicularly to the surface of the water, and that's when they will sleep with half of their brain awake and the other half asleep. So you can see that sleep is complicated across the whole panel of mammalian animals. So sleep in human beings and in mammals is a rapidly reversible state. We have to be able to sleep for our mental and physical well-being, but we also have to be able to wake up pretty quickly and be functional, because if we're not, it's a survival issue, right? You have to be able to run away from the oncoming saber-toothed tigers that's found you asleep, but we still need to have that responsiveness. It's very important for motor activity, for building our muscles and our bones while we're sleeping, and most importantly, metabolic health. While we are sleeping, there is a plethora, and we heard some of this from Laura this morning, of metabolic changes that are going on in the body to maintain homeostasis and build, okay? So the purpose of sleep is really threefold. One is restoration. It's repairing damage done during the day. The next is energy conservation. As I will tell you in a minute, while we're sleeping, everything sort of comes down, but it does not go down to nothing. It goes down to a homeostatic level where the body can restore. And importantly, memory consolidation. So while we're sleeping, our brain is actively sorting through the day memories, sorting them out and getting rid of, it's like a computer, dumping the hard drive of unwanted information and then planting important information into the brain. Sleep is socially driven. Where you sleep, when you sleep, who you sleep with. All of this can make a difference on how you sleep. And those of you who sleep with a partner who snores or thrashes about in bed knows that that can cause poor night's sleep. It's also very important to promote daytime mental and physical well-being. If you get a good night's sleep, how do you feel the next day? You feel good, right? If you've had a bad night's sleep, who gets affected by that? Your colleagues, your husband, the kids, because you're downright grumpy the next day because you haven't had a good night's sleep. And the positive effect of sleep crosses all ages, from the wee baby all the way up to the elders, in that you get a good night's sleep and it's reflected into the day in your daily activities. So what do we think would be reasonable sleep time throughout our lives? Well, needless to say, we babies need to sleep a lot, and they sleep between 14 to 17 hours a day, which hopefully helps mom get some sleep. But babies, as the child ages, the sleep needs go down. Babies, the sleep falls to about 12 to 17 hours. Children, it continues to fall to about 9 to 14 hours. Teenagers, and this is interesting, to get a good night's sleep is between 8 to 10 hours. And I don't know about who has teenagers here. Okay, how are you doing with that 8 to 10 hours sleep? Terrible, right? And this is why we wonder why kids have a hard time in school the next day. If they're not getting this required amount of sleep, their function in school the next day is poor. As we become adults, our sleep needs continue to fall. So on average, between 7 to 9 hours of sleep for adults. As we age into our 70s and 80s, our sleep needs do decrease, although we find that older people tend to sleep longer. So let's talk about healthy sleep architecture. And we're going to go through the 4 stages of sleep. We're going to talk about circadian rhythm, but only very briefly because you guys know everything because of our great talk this morning, and I'm not going to repeat information, okay? And then we're going to talk about chronotypes. So when you understand these 3 components of sleep, you'll understand really what's going on when you are sleeping. So let's start talking about the 4 stages of sleep. All of you have heard of the term REM, rapid eye movement, and non-rapid eye movement sleep, right? Okay? So let's go through this. Now, I wanted to make this slide to be a little submarine, but this was Keynote, which I hate, and I couldn't find a submarine to move across that, so we're going to have to just use our imaginations. Okay, so imagine you're in a submarine, okay, and you're ready to go to bed. It's bedtime, you're feeling sleepy, you know you're about to drift off, and off you drift. And as you drift, the submarine starts to dive. And as it dives down, it goes into non-REM sleep, and non-REM sleep is 3 stages. The first stage, you're going from the lighter sleep stage, you start falling into a deeper sleep. You then move into REM 2, which is where you spend most of your time while you're sleeping. And then you move into the REM, non-REM stage 3. Oops, sorry, you get to all see my email as it comes in, and I don't think there's anything I can do about that, sorry. Hopefully nothing that I'm going to be embarrassed about. Then you move into non-REM sleep 3. This is your deepest sleep, okay? This is the sleep where your body is doing probably most of the recovery, the consolidation, the processing. As you go through this, it's interesting, you start out with a little bit of an elevated blood pressure and body temperature, but as you go through your 3 stages of non-REM sleep, your body temperature falls, your blood pressure falls, your heart rate falls, and by the time you're in non-REM sleep 3, your blood pressure is at its lowest nadir, your pulse is decreased, and your body temperature is at the lowest. Then you start to cycle out of non-REM 3. Your little submarine is now coming up to the surface. It drifts back up to the surface into REM sleep. And REM sleep is the sleep where you have your most vivid dreaming. One of the reasons some people remember their vivid dreams, because if you wake up during REM sleep, your memory of that dream is retained a little bit longer. I'm sure some of you have woken up from a vivid dream, lain in bed for a few minutes, thought about the dream, gone back to sleep again, and you haven't remembered it the next morning. And because that memory can only be held on for some people a short period of time. During REM sleep, this is when you'll have muscle twitching. It's also a time when the muscles in your body are actually inert. How many of you have ever woken up in a REM sleep and have been unable to move? Has anyone experienced that? It's a kind of scary feeling. And it's what's happened is you've woken up during REM sleep while your muscles are still in that very relaxed position, and it takes a little while for your body to kind of kick everything back in again. So each night, you go through 5 of these cycles, okay? You may wake up, when you go into your REM, you may wake up because something's triggered it, go to the toilet. It's the most common reason people wake up during the night. And then you go back to bed and you fall back into your sleep cycle. So you go through 5 of these cycles. And here are the 5 cycles laid out. And you can see the kind of plunging in your little submarine into the depths, coming back up to the surface and plunging back down again. And what's important about this is as the night progresses, your REM sleep increases and your non-REM sleep cycle decreases. And the reason behind this is probably because as you come up into your REM sleep, your blood pressure increases a little bit, your pulse rate goes up a little bit, and your body's is adjusting to that higher level before it goes back down into the non-REM sleep. And you will see that as you approach the morning, You don't go into the deep stage 3 REM sleep anymore. You just go down to 2, which is more shallow, and then come back into a long REM sleep period. This is when you're getting ready to wake up. Your cortisol level has increased, your blood pressure has come up, your pulse has come up, and your body is ready to wake up and get up and start moving. Okay, so circadian rhythm. This is a slide that you pretty much saw this morning, okay, which is showing what Laura showed, that you go through this cycle, and circadian rhythm is very important. And it's triggered by light, as Laura said. And I'm not going to go through this because she did a beautiful job of outlining what was going on with melatonin and some of the hormones that we'll touch on in a few minutes. But what I will talk about is somebody in the audience asked the question about living up in, say, Barrow, where we have short days and long nights in the winter, and long days and short nights in the summer. Had anybody studied it? And I don't know of any studies, but I spent a year at the South Pole, as I had mentioned yesterday. And what's interesting about the South Pole is that here in the United States and the rest of the world, we have a day where we go through the circadian rhythm, right? The sun comes up, it stays up, you have sunset, it gets dark, they have sunrise, and you start a new day. Everybody agree with that? That is a one cycle. It takes a day to cycle through. At the South Pole, it takes a full year to go through that same cycle, okay? So when you live at the South Pole, which everybody knows where the South Pole is, right? Antarctica, the south, down there, okay? We actually had a compass at the South Pole that had northwest, north, south, east, and west. Well, at the South Pole, it was north, 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 and north, because everything pointed north. But at the South Pole, you literally have a year to go through a one-day cycle. So the sun stays up for 3 months. It never goes below the horizon. The sun sets for 6 weeks. It goes below the horizon. It stays below the horizon for about 5 months. It then cycles up through sunrise, about 6 to 8 weeks, and then back into daylight. So when you're living at the South Pole, you're living in an environment with zero light to trigger you. There's nothing. The station has fluorescent lights that are on all the time. The only place you can have darkness is in your cabin. So when I was at the South Pole working as a physician, one of our most frequent problems had to do with our circadian rhythm. We had no stimulus to do our circadian rhythm, and as a result, people had a very hard time with sleep. And the response that we had to give people, we gave people melatonin, but we had to encourage people to create their own circadian rhythm. We had to ask people to go to bed at a certain time and to get up at a certain time when they went to their room, to go into their room, get into bed, turn the lights out, and sleep. And when they got up, you just had to go out into fluorescent light. So it made me realize how important the circadian rhythm is to having a good night's sleep. In the summertime, when it's 100% light, we had to block out all the windows in the cabins to create our own darkness, not unlike what we had to do up in Barrow, okay? So that's my little comment on circadian rhythm, and I hope that you guys have got a sense of how important it is to really have good sleep. And by the way, this is the station picture we took, and this was taken outside. It was probably about minus 70 degrees, 170 degrees out there. It was very cold. We are at the geographic South Pole right there. And what we did, we all went out. I am in there. I can see myself looking very cold. That is exactly what the sky could look like. This was done on a lapse camera, so the aurora looks really bright. But I've never in my life seen a sky so full of stars, and the Milky Way was just mind-boggling down there because we had zero light outside to affect how you saw the sky, so it was pretty spectacular. And we were sending this picture to the 2 astronauts who were going up to the space station with the SpaceX program. I don't know if you remember during 2020. We sent two astronauts up, and there's a huge tie between the space station and the South Pole because we are both living in very hostile and tough environments. They say living at the South Pole is similar to living what it would be like living on Mars. So that's my South Pole story. Okay, so let's talk about chronotypes. And this is where my talk will grind to a halt, because you're all going to be looking at this to see what chronotype are you. And I encourage you to do that, because we're going to take a little poll. So the third pillar of sleep architecture is your chronotype. And Laura mentioned chronotype. This is something that is genetically programmed into you, okay? It's your body's natural preference for awakeness and sleep, okay? Whether you are an early to bed, early to rise, a late to bed, late to rise, somewhere in the middle, or just a difficult sleeper, okay? It's influenced by genetics, and it is, again, driven by the circadian rhythm. What's interesting is when you figure out who you are, your chronotype affects the way you sleep and the way you perform during the day, okay? And if you know what your chronotype is and you can live your life a little close to your chronotype, you can actually improve your sleep quality, your energy, and your mood, because you're living your life more in tune to what your chronotype is. So, lion, bear, wolf, dolphin. Has anybody ever heard of this particular model before? Is this new to everybody? Good, okay. So have a look. Most people are bears, and bears are people who wake up around 7 o'clock, they go to bed about 11, and your most productive time is between 10 and 2 in the afternoon. Okay, is that you? Think about it. Lions, I think I'm a lion. I don't like being a lion because I don't like the bedtime. But lions are people who like to wake up early, they are very productive in the morning, and they tend to go to bed early, okay? Wolves are the night people. They tend to wake up at 9 o'clock, they are more productive in the afternoon, and they like to go to bedtime late. And then lastly, we have the little dolphin. Only 10% of people are dolphin chronotype, and these are very sensitive sleepers. They tend to have fragmented sleep. They rarely keep regular sleep schedules, but they function very well like this because this is what their genetic function is, their genetic background is. They like to wake up early. They're most productive in the late afternoon. They go to bed at 11, but when they're sleeping, it's fragmented. Okay, has everybody decided who they are? Okay, how many bears in the audience? Don't be shy. We're not judging. Okay, bears, bears, bears. I thought there would be more. Okay, let's see what we are. How many lions in the audience? Okay, lots of lions. That's very interesting. So we are all productive in the morning. Just as well I played Kung Fu Fighter to keep you guys all regenerated. How about wolves? Who's a wolf? Okay, so we've got some late night people here. Are any of you gamers? No hands up. Oftentimes, late night people, oh, we got a gamer there. Okay, our gamers, okay. And then do we have any precious dolphin unicorns? Oh, we have a dolphin over there. A couple of dolphins. How wonderful. Okay. So in some ways, other than the fact we are more lions than bears, it kind of gives you an idea. If you know your chronotype, start thinking about when are you the most productive? Do I fit the profile of getting up early and going to bed early? I said I'm a lion. I get up at 5 in the morning. Why do you think I don't go to bed until 11 o'clock? Oh, you guys are so good. That's because I told them. Yes. I've run afoul of Netflix. Okay, so hopefully I've shown you that sleep is a very complex metabolic state. It is not what they thought at the turn of the 20th century. It's just time you shut down and then you get back up again, okay? So how can I tell if I'm sleeping well, okay? And these two guys, I like the top one with a little smile on. They both have smiles on their faces. Those are happy dogs. Okay, so I put these up here. Does anybody here use a smart device that monitors sleep for them? Okay, so these are interesting technologies that have come out, and I often get asked questions about, people will say, well, this is my data. Why does it show that I'm spending all my time awake, but I feel like I'm asleep? So this technology uses the same technology as a pedometer or on your phone, your step counter. So it's using motion as a way to figure out how you're sleeping. Remember I told you when you went into REM 3, you're pretty inert, but when you go up into earlier stages of sleep, you're more active. So these devices on your wrist are busy tracking how active you are. Some of the devices are also checking your pulse. Some check blood pressure, as I'll show you in a minute. Some of them check body temperature, and they predict what they think your sleep cycle is. Now, these devices are not approved by any organization like, the Sleep People of America. They keep their algorithms very proprietary. They don't like to share what the science is behind how they decide how your sleep cycle is. So you have to take the data with a grain of salt. How many of you have seen these devices? Is anybody using an Iris and an Aura? Did someone put their hand up? Nobody? No? This is very interesting. We have a couple of people up in Barrow who are using this device. It's a ring that you put on your finger, and this is what it claims to do. It does heart rate variability, blood oxygenation, calorie burning, step counting, respiratory rate, body temperature, blood pressure, stress monitoring, sleep monitoring, and fertility monitoring. It's sort of like the ring from Mordor, And it's really kind of interesting is if you look over at one of the ring, the Iris, you'll see little monitors at the back, and what it's doing is through your finger, it is monitoring your body temperature, your motion, or everything I just mentioned, and then it's interpreting it into this information. These things are expensive. They run maybe $250 to $500. The Iris, which has just come on the market, you have to pay a monthly fee. So it's like $6.99 a month to have it, okay? So these two devices are sort of like on the cutting edge for physical activity, general health, and sleep health, but they come with a price. Okay, 30 minutes, we're doing fine. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sleep deprivation. We've talked about sleep health. You guys now understand what makes a healthy night's sleep. So if we look at the turn of the 20th century, Americans slept for about 9 hours a night on average. And by the late 1950s, that was holding true. Only 2% of the population was sleeping less than 6 hours a night. Interestingly, if you go back into 14th, 15th, 16th century, people actually slept in two shifts. They would have what was called first sleep and second sleep. And that was because people had to get up halfway through their sleep cycle to cook, to stoke the fires, to take care of the livestock, and then they would go back to sleep for another 4 hours. And that's been recorded all the way back to Chaucer, this concept of 2 sleep cycles. Now with modern conveniences, we no longer do 2 sleep cycles, we do 1 sleep cycle. But the problem is today, greater than 30% of American adults sleep less than 6 hours a night. And I won't ask for a hand up here. I don't want to shame anybody about sleeping poorly, but it is not unusual for most of our patients too to be, if you ask them, and I ask all my patients, how do you sleep? That they will tell you that they don't sleep a full 8 hours. So on average, the average American sleeps about 6.8 hours a night, which is short of what is considered optimal for sleep health. So, I was meant to ask you guys this, but I'll put it up there anyway. And this is in great part due to 24-hour smartphones and internet access, because people do tend to be on their phones in the evening instead of sleeping, okay? What's the first thing everybody does when they get up in the morning? What's the last thing you do before you turn the light out? It's the truth, and it's unfortunate because it really has played havoc, I think, with our sleep cycles. So let's talk about sleep insufficiency, and I'm not talking about insomnia, and I want to make that very clear. We're talking about sleep insufficiency. So we're talking about inadequate quality or quantity of sleep. So it's defined as when sleep insufficiency is insufficient to support adequate alertness, performance, and health during the day, either because you haven't slept enough or you've been waking up during the night for various reasons. Now, acute sleep deprivation is defined as having a bad night's sleep for maybe 2, 3, 4 days in a row. So some of the examples of this is I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go up to Barrow to work. The next day, I'm always feeling sleep deprived. Something may have happened during the evening. You have to take care of kids, and you don't go to bed until late, and you're sleep deprived. The thing about acute sleep deprivation, studies have shown that metabolically your body is affected by acute sleep deprivation, but after it is resolved, after 2, 3, 4 days, and you've got back into your normal rhythm, your body self-corrects itself pretty quickly. So it's an acute problem that self-corrects. Where we get into trouble is with chronic sleep insufficiency or sleep restriction. And this is when individuals routinely sleep less than the required amount of time for optimal health, which is what I'm doing at the moment by not going to bed early and watching my K-dramas, okay? Come and talk to me afterwards if any of you watch K-dramas, okay? And it can be confused with insomnia, but insomnia is going to bed and not being able to go to sleep. Sleep insufficiency is you are tired, you look at the clock, it's 9 o'clock, you know it's time to switch off the light, but I've got a project to finish at work, I'm going to finish my project at work, I'm doing a knitting project, and I want to finish that end of the sleeve, and believe me, I'm a knitter, I know this. So there are activities that prevent you from going to bed when your body wants to go to bed, okay? Not insomnia. So the problem with lack of quality sleep is fundamental processes are short-circuited, okay? Thinking is negatively affected. If you're chronically tired, how are you doing at work? How's your concentration? Good? No. Concentration gets knocked off, you have problem concentrating, your energy level is decreased, your mood is more variable, you're more likely to snap at people, your fellow employees, oh, she's grumpy again today, well, it's because she's not sleeping well, okay? And it has a huge impact on health. And we know there have been many studies, and I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail of all these studies, but we know that a poor night's sleep chronically can have real negative effects on all aspects of our body. It can cause problems with arthritis, irritable bowel, risk of infection, Alzheimer's, risk of diabetes, risk of obesity, risk of depression and stress and anxiety. And you say, come on, Dr. Naylor, how can poor sleep have this effect on all parts of our body? Well, Laura said today that even parts of our bodies have their own circadian clock, right? Well, when we are metabolically in disarray because of poor sleep, all aspects of our body are affected by this, and it can have long-term poor outcomes. And here I show this, it's a big slide, but I want to show this as the trickle-down effect of inadequate sleep. And there are, at the top line, you have decreased growth hormone. What did I tell you growth hormone did? If I didn't, I will. Growth hormone is important for bone building and muscle building while we sleep, okay? It causes fatigue, it causes inflammation that we will get to in a minute, and the inflammation that is caused by poor sleep has a trickle-down effect that can really increase risk of cardiovascular disease, mental distress, idiopathic fibrosis of the lungs, risk of obesity, and then we have an autonomic nervous system is activated, and that can cause increasing blood pressure that leads to hypertension and increased cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. And lastly, and I don't know a lot about this last column, but I just throw that in there, that there are studies that are showing that poor night's sleep increases this hormone called profilin-1 that can possibly increase risk of cancers. Now, I've already talked about fatigue as a risk for obesity with poor night's sleep. So you sleep poorly and your daytime environment causes fatigue. You don't sleep well. What happens when you're feeling tired? You get hungry. You are more likely to snack. You are more likely to make poor food choices. We find that people who have poor sleep and are fatigued during the day, they are more likely to snack before they go to bed at night, because your resistance is down and you are more likely to participate in sedentary behavior, your energy expenditure is down, and it increases the risk of obesity. There's also the problem with insulin resistance, okay? When you have poor sleep, due to the inflammatory effect, your body, the insulin-glucose balance is affected. We've already talked about ghrelin and leptin as being very important hormones for health. When you sleep poorly, your leptin level falls. Remember, leptin is what makes you feel full, and your ghrelin level increases. Remember, that's the hunger signal, which is one of the problems. When you have a bad night's sleep chronically, you wake up, you feel hungry, and you are more inclined to eat during the day, okay? I put this slide up here because this is a slide that is looking at the percent of adults sleeping less than 6 hours, which is the blue column, the percentage of adults carrying BMIs greater than 30, and superimposed on this is the number of McDonald's chains, and it's looking at 1960 to 2020. That's a 60-year period. And it's the thought that as our environment has changed, as one of the key, as we are sleeping less, we see the green bar that obesity has increased. Now, I'm not saying that it's directly correlated. There is a give and take between poor sleep and weight gain. High BMI leads to poor sleep increases the risk of a high BMI. But you can get the idea that over a 60-year period, look what's happening as far as our American adults go. So I just mentioned ghrelin and leptin. I told you that these levels change when you have a bad night's sleep, and you wake up in the morning and you are not set for a successful day of eating. You're feeling hungry, you're tired, and you're more likely to make poor food choices. So we're going to look at a couple of little flow down sheets now, looking at diabetes. So we know there have been many studies that have shown there is an increased risk of diabetes too. Of two. I will just make one comment that the Nurses' Health Study, which was done some years ago, actually involved 70,000 nurses who gave information over a long period of time. They looked at a subset of these nurses who slept less than 6 hours a night. And over a 16-year period, they had a 32% increase in weight when confounders had been removed. And this really is a large study that showed this correlation between poor sleep, short sleep cycle, and weight gain. We know that weight gain can lead to diabetes. In this slide here, I show the arrows going back and forward between sleep insufficiency and obesity. The problem with poor sleep is we get inflammation. There are cytokines like tumor necrosis factor alpha that are released. They increase CRP, they cause inflammation. When you have inflammation in your body, your insulin resistance changes, and it increases the risk of diabetes. The same thing goes for hypertension and cardiovascular disease. It's that inflammation that's going on when your body is not given adequate time to heal during its sleep cycle, that the CRP, the cytokines, cause inflammation. It damages the lining of the blood vessels. It causes atherosclerosis, and over time, increased cardiovascular disease. We see hypertension through the release of cytokines and changes in the lining of the blood vessels. So I think that I hopefully have convinced you in a short amount of time that a poor night's sleep does put you at risk for a slew of health issues down the road. If we look at the fundamental pillars for good health, I think you would all agree that it's good nutrition, physical activity, and mental well-being. Would everybody agree with that? That those are three fundamental pillars of good health. Well, I'm going to postulate now that a good night's sleep is, without a question, the fourth fundamental pillar of good health. Because if you don't have a good sleep, what happens to your good nutrition pillar? It's negatively affected, right? If you don't have a good night's sleep, what happens to your activity during the day? It's decreased, right? And what if you don't have a good sleep? How's your mental health the next day? We know that it increases stress, and there is an increased risk of depression in people who are chronically sleep deprived. Okay? So, and I think it's very reasonable to think of sleep as the fourth pillar, and I would encourage you guys, when you're doing counseling with patients, especially patients with diabetes, ask them about their sleep. In my family, funnily, I don't know why we do this, but when my family, it's me and my husband, but every morning when we get up, the first, and we've done this for years, we say, did you have a good night's sleep? And we ask each other, and I don't know why we do this, but we do. We always ask, does anybody else do that? Yeah, okay, so maybe it's a sort of it's a love language. It's a love language. So there you guys, so take it home, make it your love language too. I don't know, it just shows concern when you're asking about sleep to people, and I think patients appreciate being asked that question. Okay, so Warren Zevon. Who knows who Warren Zevon is? Okay, who was he? A big-time rock and roller, wasn't he? Okay, so Warren said, you can sleep when you're dead. Okay, now here's Bon Jovi, who was probably a good, 20 years? Yeah, there you go, 20 years older. He says, gonna live while I'm alive, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Okay, I will make one comment. Warren Zevon is given credit for that, but I think Ben Franklin or Abraham Lincoln or somebody said it before him, but Warren gets credit. So I postulate that I'll sleep when I'm dead is actually deadly thinking, and that's my quote, and you guys can quote me on that, okay? But I'm kind of hoping that I have given you the impression today that bad sleep is bad sleep, okay? It's bad for you. And I think the whole idea of shortening yourself on sleep so you can live life, if you want a short life, okay, fine, go for it. But I think we're doing fine, thanks. We're almost there. Having a good night's sleep is really very important. Okay, so let's talk about common sleep disorders. Okay, so this is where I want you guys to participate, okay? Everybody wake up. Okay, good. Let's talk about, tell me things, shout out things that disturb sleep. A baby, okay, exactly. You know how I pointed out wee babies sleep for 14 to 17 hours? It doesn't mean that mom gets any more sleep, but yes, child raising is the biggest of sleep deprivers. Yes, what else? TV, who said TV? Yes, TV. Overachieving at work, and how does overachieving at, I'm going to get back to TV. How does overachieving at work affect your sleep?
Means I put that first.
You put that first. Does that mean you're doing work at night, off the clock?
Yes.
So you're not one of those people who pretend to work, you actually work. Okay. So it's true, people who are very dedicated to their job, or maybe workaholics, but I'm not saying you are, tend to work into the evening and they forget about their sleep, or they get up early so they can finish tasks. You get up early, you would like to sleep in, but you get up early. Both. Oh, dear. Okay.
Can I say it's not all the time, it's just this time.
Okay, well, so that's good news, because that's just acute sleep deprivation and you can get back onto even keel. Okay, shout out some more so I can hear. Trying to get something done kind of goes along with that. Pain, going to bed feeling pain and you can't sleep. That's reasonable, yes, I think so too. Okay, mind chatter. I'm trying to pick up on everything. Mind chatter, okay, so that's the idea that you go to bed and you lie there and your brain's just going a mile a minute. And I know that happens all the time to people. You've had a stressful day at work. Interestingly, the old adage, sleep on it, and I'll give you my answer in the morning. Who am I quoting? Thank you, Meatloaf. Meatloaf, I'm quoting Meatloaf over here. Meatloaf said, I'll sleep on it, I'll give you an answer in the morning. And actually, studies have shown that if you go to bed with a problem that you've been working on for the day and you sleep on it, you probably can get up in the morning and problem solve it that much better. So Meatloaf knew what he was talking about. Okay, what else? What? A pager, like on your belt? Like an ER pager? And which goes along with cell phones. I put a Dexicon on yesterday, right? And I went to sleep, and my submarine had just gone down into that stage 3, and that darn Dexicon went off. I had no idea what was going on. It was to tell me everything was good. Everything was good. So you're right. Devices that wake us up, it could be cell phones if you haven't put your cell phone on a sleep mode, that wake us up and make for fragmented sleep. Yes. Medications can be just play havoc on sleep, and you're right. Yes. Worrying too much, and that kind of goes along with the brain squirreling, the hamster wheel-ing. Yes. Yes, and this is very true. Or he's having a bed partner who's on a different sleep schedule too. You know, because I like to go to bed so I can watch my K-dramas. And then my husband doesn't come to bed until midnight, which means waking me up as he's getting to bed, and, you know, very annoying. Luckily, he does not turn the light on, because if he did, he'd probably not live to get into bed. Yeah. Dogs barking, so outside noise. All of these things are inside. Okay. Oops. What happened here? What do you think's going on? Oh, somebody's writing these up. Oh! Thanks. I didn't realize that. Okay. So let me look at mine. So this is what I had. How about doing other activities other than intimate whatevers and sleeping in the bedroom? Okay? That's a bad thing. If you're in the bedroom busy doing things other than sleeping, in bed, watching TV, on your phone, that's all very, very not good for sleep. Using screens in bed and immediately before bedtime. Think about it, guys. We are all interacting with screens. You've got that flashing lights. You've got the everything's inputting into your brain. So if your brain is hamster wheeling after you've gone to sleep, one of the things maybe triggering it is looking at these devices. At the South Pole, we encouraged people to put the blue screens on to try and reduce the amount of stimulation they got from their screens. So you guys got staying in bed and worrying. You got sleeping in an unrestful environment. We got that, so you guys did well. And then here's some other things. Vigorously exercising 1 hour before bedtime. Nobody came up with exercising. Here's a very important one, which is food and drink. Drinking alcohol in the evening and eating in the evening. Think about it. If you go to bed with a full stomach, what's your body trying to do while you're sleeping? It's trying to metabolize a stomach full of food, while the leptin and ghrelin is just, and your insulin and glucose is just going crazy because you've gone to bed with a full stomach of food. Another problem people have is they vary their bedtime. They go to bed one time, one night. On the weekends, they do something different. Changing your sleep bedtime hours throughout the week it causes sleep problems. How about taking a nap longer than 20 minutes? 20 minutes is the magic number for napping. They say if you nap more than 20 minutes, it's not a nap. It's become sleep, okay? And the other thing is, you'd be surprised how many people like to take naps after dinner or take a nap before they go to bed, which never made sense to me, but people apparently do that. So let's talk about some strategies to get a good night's sleep, okay? And I want to just put your mindset here, okay? We tend to undervalue sleep, and we trade it away, okay? We trade it away for working. We trade it away for tasks that we want to do, for managing the household. And we have the mentality, I can just catch up on the weekend. We have to treat sleep with the same importance as we treat nutrition and exercise, okay? And in some ways, it might be easier to treat our sleep issues than nutrition and exercise. And I might be going out on a limb saying that, and I hope I haven't hurt anyone's feelings by saying that, but I certainly feel nutrition and exercise in my life is challenging. I think if I was to apply myself to a good night's sleep, I think I could do it. So we have to think of sleep as a time for our mind and body to heal itself. Shakespeare described the sleep as nature's soft nurse, okay? So even back in those days, they realized that sleep was important for health. And we have to be careful about unrealistic expectations about sleep, okay? We have to not stress about it. We have to just do what we can to address our own sleep habits. Okay? And revenge bedtime procrastination. This is people who don't have much control over their daytime life, refuse to sleep early in order to gain some sense of freedom during the late hours of the night. So we procrastinate over going to bed as a sort of control issue. And I just ask people to kind of think about that. Are you procrastinating going to bed for some reason? Okay, so here are some techniques that we can do. Bedtime routine. Go to bed at the same time each night. Get up at the same time every day. Match your time spent in bed with the amount of sleep needed. So if you're someone who you truly believe you function well on 6 hours of sleep a night, and remember, life is a bell curve. That 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night is the bell curve. We have outliers. I met a woman many years ago who was a patient who slept 1 to 2 hours a night. And that's all she had ever done. She had, her entire life, she had slept like that. Try stimulus control. Only use the bedroom for sleeping and intimacy. Go to bed when you're sleepy. Get out of bed. If you cannot fall asleep and you're having problems with your thought processing, don't lie in bed. Get out of bed, go into another room, and process what you're thinking, okay? Take a warm bath or a shower before you go to bed, because it will be then associated with falling to sleep faster. So, I'm just looking at this. I think I've pretty much gone over this as far as trying to identify, everybody in the room, trying to identify sleep-disturbing activities that are in your life and see if you can think of some corrective changes to those activities. And then make a specific plan. If you take anything away from this and say, yeah, I'm going to go home and try and improve my sleep. Good timing. Try and put a plan together. Maybe it's just one thing you're going to do, like turn off the cell phone an hour before it's time to go to bed, read a book, or do something else, okay? Whoops. And changing sleep habits can start to yield improved sleep within a few days or weeks. It does not take months to improve your sleep. It can be done within days or weeks, okay? And in your slides, you'll have this. I'm not going to go over this, but this is just looking at some of the things that we can start thinking about. I like this one that says renew subscription to Sports Illustrated or Newsweek to have hard copies to read in bed. I don't think that's such a great idea. But maybe a good romance novel would do the trick, okay? So look at this in the slides. I'm not going to go over it because we've really just talked about everything. So here is my little list here. So I put this together and I say, okay, I'm going to change one thing here, and it's my binging networks and Instagram. I will make a pledge. No, I won't. I can't. You see? I will make a pledge that I will try and turn off my computer stuff an hour before my bedtime. If you guys knew how challenging this will be for me, you'd realize I'm making a big sacrifice today for you guys. Okay? Thank you. I'll try. I'll let Teresa know if I manage. Don't lie in bed worrying. Get out of bed. Don't stop working late. Take some time off. Enjoy your evening. Limit the bedroom for what bedrooms are for, okay? So sleep may be the most important health and well-being okay, let me try that again. Sleep may be as important to health and well-being as nutrition and exercise. And I hope that in this past hour, I've convinced you of that, okay? And I hope that there are a few people in the room, like me, who are going to try and make some little changes to improve our sleep, okay? So here is a lovely quote. Sleep is that golden chain that ties health and our bodies together. And this is a quote from Thomas Dekker. If you Google him, he'll come up as a rock and roller, of the 21st century. Well, he didn't. Thomas Dekker, the rock and roller, didn't say it. It was actually an Elizabethan dramatist, Thomas Dekker, that not many people know about. But this was one of his quotes, and I think it's a beautiful way of thinking about health and our bodies and sleep as an intertwined that we can't separate out, and we have to respect it. So having said that, I believe my time is up, and thanks everybody. So good luck. Fighting.
Thank you, Julien. Next.